The immune system, our body's defense. Here is our lecture outline. We will be focusing on two topics: immune system anatomy. We will be having an introduction and overview about it, and then the lymphatic system, followed by the immune response, another introduction and overview, the timeline, and summary. So, what is the immune system? It is a complex collection of cells and organs that destroys or neutralizes pathogens that would otherwise cause disease or death. So, it is a network of cells, tissues, and organs that work together to defend our body against the attacks by foreign invaders. And these foreign invaders are actually primarily microbes or germs or tiny infection causing organisms like bacteria, viruses, parasites, and fungi. So, because the human body provides an ideal environment for many microbes, they actually try to break in. So, it is the immune system's job to keep them out or failing that, to seek out and destroy them. When the immune system hits the wrong target or is crippled, however, it can unleash a torrent of diseases, like, for example, allergies or arthritis or AIDS. The immune system is amazingly complex. It can recognize and remember millions of different enemies, and it can produce secretions and cells to match up with and wipe out each one of them. So, it is the body's defense against disease causing organisms or infectious agents. It is our body's defense against malfunctioning cells or abnormal body cells like cancer, and against foreign cells or particles. Now, let us move forward to the lymphatic system, the main organs and organ systems involved in the immune system. So, the immune system is made up of many different organs, tissues, cells, and molecules that protect our body from harmful microbes, which we call pathogens. The cells of the immune system are what we call immune cells. So, these are the WBCs, or the white blood cells, or what we also call leukocytes. These cells would travel all throughout the body through blood vessels and the lymphatic vessels. So the immune system also include organs that um, produce or contain large numbers of immune cells. So the different organs that are involved in our immune system are called lymphoid organs, and they include the following: the bone marrow, the lymph nodes, our spleen, the thymus, and tonsils. The body has physical and chemical barriers to keep pathogens from infecting or entering the tissues. So, these barriers include, first, of course, we have our skin, which is the outer layer and is made of dead cells that block pathogens. It also involves the sticky mucus, which traps pathogens, saliva and sweat as well, which contains antibodies and enzymes that destroy these pathogens. Our stomach acid, which is produced during digestion, actually kills many of the pathogens in what we eat or drink. So, the skin and mucus are also home to many microbes that do not cause disease and that are part of our microbiome. These microbes may be useful for us and, in some cases, protect us as well from pathogens. The immune system does not attack these helpful microbes. The bone marrow is a spongy tissue found inside some bones. So, both the red blood cells and immune cells develop from blood stem cells in our bone marrow. So, the stem cells produce two types of progenitor cells that give rise to many other types of cells. The lymphoid progenitor cell produce lymphocytes, which includes the T cells, the B cells, and the NK, or the natural killer cells. Myeloid progenitor cells produce red blood cells and all other immune cells, which includes the phagocytes. B cells are the only immune cells that will develop and become fully functional in the bone marrow. So once the bone marrow produces the B cells will mature in there, while the other cells will um, leave the bone marrow and they will develop in other parts or organs of the body. T cells are an adaptive immune cell that helps the body to respond to specific pathogens, and it actually differentiates into helper T cells and cytotoxic T cells. The B cells are an adaptive type of immune cell. What they do is that they help target and destroy specific pathogens. The B cells need to be activated by the T cells for it to perform its function, and it differentiates into plasma cells to produce antibodies. The natural killer cells are innate immune cells that kills infected and abnormal cells. Phagocytes are those innate immune cell that engulfs and destroys pathogens and abnormal cells. So the phagocytes includes neutrophils, monocytes, macrophages, and dendritic cells. So here, the B cells work chiefly by secreting substances which are called antibodies into the body's fluids, which we will discuss more on later. The immature T cells, they do not recognize free-floating antigens. Rather, their surfaces contain specialized antibody-like receptors that see fragments of antigens on the surfaces of infected or cancerous cells. Now, we have two types of T cells, the helper T cell and the cytotoxic T cells. So the helper T cells, they coordinate with immune responses by communicating with other cells. So some helpers T cells will stimulate nearby B cells, and once B cells are activated or stimulated by these helper T cells, the B cells will produce antibody. Others call in microbe gobbling cells called phagocytes. Still others activate other T cells. So the killer T cells, also called the cytotoxic T lymphocytes or CTLs, they of course perform a different function. So what they do, as the name suggests, is that they directly attack other cells which carry antigens or foreign or abnormal molecules on their surfaces. So these foreign substances that are tagged as invaders by our immune system will be targeted by the cytotoxic T cells, and the cytotoxic T cells will kill them. Natural killer cells are another kind of lethal white cell. So like the killer T cells, NK cells are armed with granules filled with potent chemicals. So the NK cells have the potential to attack many types of foreign cells. Phagocytes are large white cells that can swallow and digest microbes and other foreign particles. So we have here the monocytes, which are phagocytes that circulate in the blood. So when monocytes migrate into the tissues, they actually develop into macrophages. The specialized types of macrophages can be found in many organs, which includes the lungs, the kidneys, brain, and liver. And these specialized types of macrophages have different names on the different organs where they can be found. Next organ involved in the immune system is the thymus. So this is where the T cells develop and produce proteins called the T cell receptors on its surface. TCR binds to antigens from a pathogen to trigger immune response against that pathogen. So antigens are a small piece of biological material, which can be protein, carbohydrates, lipids, or nucleic acids, that can be recognized by the immune system. So antigens from pathogens or abnormal cells, they are what triggers the immune response. The key to a healthy immune system is its remarkable ability to distinguish between the body's own cells and foreign self. So the immune system is able to differentiate which are normal cells or those that are found in the self, and those that the cells that are invader or considered to be foreign. So the body's immune defenses normally coexist peacefully with cells that carry distinctive self-marker molecules. But When the immune defenders encounter cells or organisms that carry markers that say foreign, which are the antigens, they will quickly launch an attack. So anything that can trigger that would be the antigen. So the antigen can be a microbe, such as a virus, or even a part of a microbe. Antigens are found not only on pathogens but also on most cells. So this means that some T cells could bind to the body's own antigens and trigger an immune response against the body's cells. So to keep this from happening, T cells that bind to self antigens are actually destroyed. So a similar selection process also occurs for B cells in the bone marrow, reducing the number of B cells that recognize self antigens. Then we have the lymph nodes. These are found throughout the body and are connected by lymphatic vessels, thin tubes that are similar to blood vessels, but the difference is that they do not contain any red blood cells. Pathogens can enter our lymphatic vessels from a site of infection and travel to the lymph nodes. Now, inside the lymph nodes, they are targeted by a variety of immune cells, which includes the B cells, the T cells, and the phagocytes. Now, lymph is a fluid inside the lymphatic vessels which travels through the body via lymphatic vessels and lymph nodes, and eventually it returns to the blood afterwards. The spleen, its main function is to remove old or damaged cells from the blood. It contains phagocytes, so it contains dendritic cells and macrophages. So the phagocytes will engulf and destroy abnormal, infected, or old red blood cells and recycle their components like amino acids and iron. So it also contains B cells and T cells that help fight pathogens. So these are the different organs or the anatomy of our immune system. Next, we have the immune response. So, when harmful microbes or pathogens infect or enter our body, the immune system fights them off in a coordinated set of processes, which we call the immune response. So, some pathogens are quickly destroyed, others multiply and reach large numbers before the immune system fights them off. So there are two main parts of immune response. We have the innate immune response and we have the adaptive immune response. So the innate immune response, it actually provides immediate and broad protection against pathogens, and then it will be followed by the adaptive immune response, which develops more slowly, but it provides longer lasting and more specialized protection. Okay, the innate immune response. It provides the body's first line of defense against pathogens. So it is present and functional from birth, and it includes physical and chemical barriers like the skin and the mucous membranes. So the innate immune cells have receptors that will bind to many different types of pathogens, but it cannot distinguish between specific types. Now, in the adaptive immune response, it is more specific compared to the innate immune response because it targets antigens from specific pathogens and abnormal cells. So it is able to distinguish the two. So it's more powerful because it can remember previously encountered pathogens and destroy them more easily using the long-lasting memory cells. So there are two main parts. First is the cell-mediated immune response, which is controlled by the active T cells. And then we have the humoral immune response, which is controlled by the active B cells. So the body makes and uses antibodies to fight specific pathogens. So the antibodies are involved in the humoral immune response of the adaptive immune response of our immune system. Now we keep on saying antibodies. What are antibodies? So the human immune system can generate billions of types of antibodies. So antibodies are a small protein that binds to a specific antigen, and it is made by plasma cells and help the immune system fight pathogens in various ways. 15 to 30% of the population in these regions are affected by the disease. An antigen matches an antibody match as a key matches a lock. Whenever antigen and antibody interlocks, the antibody marks the antigen for destruction. So some match exactly, others fit more like a skeleton key. Immunoglobulins are a glycoprotein produced by an organism as a protective response to the invasion of microorganisms or foreign molecules. So, antibodies belong to a family of large molecules called immunoglobulins. Antibodies help the body fight a specific pathogen in different ways. And the process by which the body will make and use antibodies to fight specific antigens are called the humoral immune response. So, first, they bind to antigens, causing the pathogens to clump together. So, when they clump together, they are already neutralized to not infect cells anymore. So, clumped pathogens are removed by phagocytosis. Then they bind to neutralize poisonous or damaging substances called toxins produced by some pathogens, which are also removed by phagocytosis. They activate a group of proteins called complement proteins that help kill pathogens or infected cells that have antibodies bound to them. All types of immunoglobulin molecules have much the same basic structure, which includes the following features. First, as you can see from the image on the right, they have four polypeptide chains, two identical heavy or H chains, and two identical L or light chains. So the H chains are approximately twice as long as the L chains. Both H and L chains have constant and variable regions. Now, these constant regions, we call them constant regions because they have the same amino acid sequence from immunoglobulin to immunoglobulin, and the variable regions have a different amino acid sequence in each immunoglobulin. So the carbohydrate content of various immunoglobulins varies from 1% to 12% by mass. So that's why immunoglobulins are actually a type of glycoproteins. The secondary and tertiary structures are similar for all immunoglobulins. So they involve a Y-shaped conformation with disulfide linkages between H and L chains, which stabilize the structure. An immunoglobulin is made up of two heavy chains and two light chains, as we have seen from the previous slide, and the variable region, which differs from one to another, allows an antibody to recognize its matching antigen. So that is what makes the antigen and the immunoglobulin like a lock-in key. Different types play different roles in the immune defense strategy. So we have five different types of immunoglobulins that are directly involved in the immune response of our immune system. So first, we have the immunoglobulin G or the IgG. It works efficiently to coat microbes, speeding their uptake by other cells in the immune system. The immunoglobulin M or IgM is very effective at killing bacteria. IgA, it is found concentrated in our body fluids like our tears and saliva or secretions of respiratory tract and the digestive tract, which guards the entrances of our body. IgE, whose natural job probably is to protect against parasitic infections, is actually the villain responsible for the symptoms of allergy. IgD remains attached to the B cells and plays a key role in initiating early B cell response. Now, how does it work? So here is a series of steps on how the immune system works. First, the B cell finds an antigen which matches its receptors. And then it waits for the helper T cell to be activated. Once activated, the B cell will divide to produce the plasma cells, which produces the antibodies, and the memory cells, which stores information about the newly encountered antigen or pathogen. Now, the plasma cells will produce antibodies that will attach to the current type of invader. And then, once the pathogens are tagged by antibodies, the eater cells, which are our phagocytes, will eat these pathogens, which are marked by antibodies. And then, if, for example, the same pathogen will be encountered for a second time or third time, the memory cells will help the immune system to activate much faster. So once antibodies effectively bind to their target antigen, they can either neutralize their target antigen directly by blocking normal antigen binding, or they can induce the recruitment of other immune cells or molecules that promote the antigen's removal or destruction. One very fascinating thing about our immune system is its immunological memory. So, if the same pathogen or antigen is encountered a second time, even if it's a decade after or many years after the previous occurrence, the system will react very fast or much faster and more dramatically to produce a large amount of specific IgG to counter that antigen. So no matter how long time has passed, if, for example, we encounter that same pathogen again, our immune system has a storage or immunological memory that will remember that same pathogen so that the response will be very fast already. So, this is how our immune system defends our body from invading particles. Thank you for listening and see you in the next one.